again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Two Friends Talking Trends. My name is Mike Pachenik.
And I'm Pauline Barron.
And we are excited to welcome our very first guest to the podcast. How great is this, Pauline? We have somebody who wants to talk to us.
This is awesome. I am so excited.
Our guest today is Julie Revelant. She's the owner of Revelant Writing LLC, a company that makes the writing process simple so lean business-to-business healthcare marketing teams can do more with less. She works with Fortune 500 healthcare companies, payers, and various healthcare technology companies that want to stand out in a competitive, complicated industry, create newsworthy content, help their C-suites shine. And as a health journalist, Julie has written hundreds of stories for print and digital outlets such as foxnews.com, everydayhealth.com, First for Women, and Women's World magazines. You can learn more about Julie at revelantwriting.com. Well, Julie, it is great to have you on Two Friends Talking Trends. Thank you so much for making time for us today.
Yes, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
So tell us about your background. How did you start out?
Yeah. So I actually started out in sales. The goal was to be a television producer. I went to school for television and video, but at that time we were in an economic downturn. And so I took whatever came across my way. I was interning at ABC Television Network, and I had a paid internship scheduling the on-air the promos for the Super Sign in Times Square. So it was a lot of fun, and working on different marketing initiatives there. And then again, took a sales role. Didn't really love it. It was just scheduling ads. It was kind of mundane, but it was good to see that part of the business. And then eventually made my way to the Yankees Entertainment and Sports Network, where I worked my way up to becoming a writer and a producer. And then my ultimate dream was really to work in live television, because I had done that in college and loved it. And I actually had an opportunity to work as a PA at the Tyra Banks show. I don't know if you remember that show many years ago.
Nice.
And it was amazing, but I think I realized after that experience that it really wasn't my dream job, and I wasn't going to have a life or a family if I continued in that way. So that's kind of where I got started. And the week that I graduated college, I think I had been taking a journalism class, but again, I was television major, and I pulled aside the journalism professor and I said, "Could I be a journalist?" And I don't remember what she said, but basically what I did was I graduated and I started writing pro bono for local publications just to get clips, because I just wanted to write. And so I did that throughout the years as I was working full time to get my clips, I guess, always knowing that someday I would be a writer.
Yeah, it's very clear that this is your passion. So
Yeah.
walk us through, how did you decide to go on your own?
Yeah. So after that experience at the Tyra Banks show, I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and I knew someone who had her own little, it was a marketing firm, but I think it was just her, and it seemed appealing to me. And I thought, all right, I'm going to become a copywriter. And I definitely think I went into it completely blind, not knowing how to run a business or be a freelancer or anything like that. And I had made a connection at a local marketing firm in Westchester County, New York. And ironically, my first project was it was a copywriting project for Danbury Hospital. And I fell in love with writing and the whole process and working with the client. And so it started there. And that's, I realized that I really wanted to be a freelancer, and I had held other roles throughout the years as well. But in 2015, officially launched my business.
It's amazing to see your passion. It's clear that you're very passionate about that. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So Julie, why would a company, or should a company, hire someone like yourself to write their content for them as opposed to keeping it in-house?
Yeah, well, as you've seen lately, even this week, there's been a ton of layoffs. But most of these companies have really lean marketing teams. So maybe 3 people if they're lucky. A lot of the clients I work with, it's just really 1 or 2. And so they need extra bandwidth. The other reason is a lot of marketers either don't like writing or aren't writers. So they really need to get that work done. They need to outsource it. And then, I would also say that a lot of marketers are hiring freelance writers because they need a fresh perspective. So they're so close to the business. They know all the ins and outs. They know how the technology works, but they really need someone to come at it from a different perspective and look at it, full circle.
And how would you say that would be your way of jumping in and understanding the business and understanding the audience? What's
Yeah.
the process that needs to happen, for you to be part of the team, but having still fresh eyes, but having that understanding of the business?
I would recommend that when a healthcare company engages with a freelance writer, that they provide them with as much information as possible. So what's really important is having your brand messaging framework, so your value props and your why statement and your buyer personas, so that the freelance writer understands the business. They understand who we're talking to, what is the message, what are their pain points, what are their challenges. And so it all starts there. And then, I always ask to send me as much as you can, looking at company overviews and sales presentations, webinars, previous collateral, just really trying to get an understanding of what's the product, what's the solution, and what are we saying, who are we talking to?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And in terms of if a company is looking to hire, what are the tips that you can share with our audience right now? What to look for in hiring copywriters?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that marketers look for is subject matter expertise, especially in healthcare. I can't tell you how many times I take sales calls and Mike, I don't want to knock you here, but again, not to knock PR firms, but a lot of times what prospects tell me is that we had a PR firm, but they didn't get healthcare. And so I guess it's a common challenge for them. PR has an amazing role and should work together with the entire team. But I would say that most marketers that I work with, they're looking for subject matter expertise because it's something that you can't really teach. It just you kind of learn as you go. So regardless of industry, subject matter expertise. I would also say working with someone who's not just an order taker. So someone who's thinking about the business holistically, thinking about your long-term goals, considering where you're going, what you need, what types of support you need, and providing recommendations. So not just, we have a white paper, okay, it's done, that's it. The person is really coming in and looking at everything and offering up additional strategy recommendations or content recommendations.
Yeah, let's talk about the content, Julie, for those who are listening who maybe aren't familiar with the kinds of content that they can avail you for. What is out there, and what are companies deploying and why?
Yeah. So again, I think it really depends on each company's goals. I would say, though, that a lot of healthcare companies in particular are looking for thought leadership articles, content, social content. Everyone's talking about the same thing, especially in healthcare. So health equity and social determinants of health and care coordination. Everyone's talking about the same goals because healthcare is moving in that direction. But I always say, what is it that your company is going to say differently? What is that fresh perspective? How are you going to have a different take on the same old? So yes, I think there's a lot of thought leadership. Like I said, PR is so valuable that I always recommend that companies create thought leadership and then try to place it in the media, because it's such a great way to boost your credibility and really have that forward facing, that put a name to the brand. So if your CEO if they're placing thought leadership for the CEO, you're humanizing the brand and it's more relatable, and buyers are more interested in engaging in companies where their C-suite they're actively looking to publish content like that. And then of course, social media, but really what's feeding that engine is all your other type of content. So I will say that a lot of companies now are moving towards valuable content. So often we consume content and it's so high level. You know, I've posted about this on LinkedIn where there's oftentimes I'll listen to podcasts and they're so high level and it's like, give me more. You know, I came on here to learn and I want valuable insights. I need to know what to do next. I don't want to just I don't want you to regurgitate what I could find online. And so I think that companies definitely should move in that direction where they're creating meatier pieces of content, so white papers and ebooks, and also a particular asset that's really valuable are original research reports. So if you can work with a marketing firm who can conduct original research for you, a survey, or you do it yourself internally, the media love that. And there's so much bandwidth from a piece like that. There's so many valuable insights. You can repurpose it and use it long-term, produce an original research report, then repurpose it into different thought leadership articles, social media posts, and again, get the media interested in your company. And then, you know, finally, I mean, so many companies, again, depends on their goals, but they need sell sheets, they need brochures, case studies are really important. And then of course, video, you know, everyone is moving in this direction for years. But I think this year is really where most companies are going to step into that space.
I love what you just said because it really ties to really knowing your buyer's persona, right? So if you know who they are, then your content is going to be a lot more targeted and a lot more specific. So can we talk a little bit about that in terms of how do you build that buyer's persona? What are the first steps? You know, if people are listening to us right now, they're like, oh, okay, I would really want to get deeper into my buyer persona. How would I do that?
Yeah, and I think the buyer's personas are part of your entire brand messaging framework. And so that happens from workshopping it with your team. And, you know, I'd recommend that you work with a marketing firm who offers those types of services. And again, it's coming up with the why statement. So Simon Sinek, you know, coined this term, and it's really understanding, you know, why you do what you do and why people choose you.
Yeah.
And then the buyer personas, yeah, again, are a part of that. And I would say that that comes from research and conducting interviews with your buyers to really understand their pain points and their challenges, and maybe some obstacles that they face, and why they may not choose your solution, and different attributes of that buyer, you know, down to basic demographics, age, location, income, how they got to their role, things like that. It is so important, Pauline. And it can also happen, though, I think, organically with your sales reps as they interact with your potential buyers, for sure. Yeah.
So now that we have the buyer's persona, now we have a very specific content. Can you walk us through in terms of channels? What are the differences that we can, you know, communicate that value proposition in different channels, the languages, the formats, for example, social media versus email or a blog? Like, would love to hear your thoughts as the expert on little tips that, you know, our listeners can really apply to their, you know, communications.
Yeah, and I think you have it right. It's really a multi-channel approach, right? And it's not, people think, oh, we started a blog, build it and they will come. No, that is not going to happen. It's a multi-channel approach, right? You know yourself, when you're interacting with a brand, you're not just on their website, you're getting social media and you're getting SMS and you're seeing video on YouTube, and you're getting hit at all the different channels so that you're being nurtured until you close that deal. And so, yes, I think it's a multi-channel approach. I also say that it's the long game, right? It's not, like I said, it's not build it and they will come. It's feeding the funnel. It's creating content. It's having a fresh voice. And so, I mean, I think it's every channel for most companies. I will say, you know, again, in healthcare, a lot of my clients are articles, ebooks, white papers, things that they're posting on their site, and then maybe they're running paid campaigns on LinkedIn. And a lot of them, interestingly, are apprehensive to do email. And yet the studies show that email is so effective. And it's like,
Yeah.
why not repurpose that content and create an email campaign? People are reading email. Email is not dead. Social will always be there. Email will always be there for sure. We're all on our email all the time.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's, to answer your question, I think it's all channels all the time, as much as you can do. But obviously a lot of marketers have lean marketing teams, don't have a lot of bandwidth. And so it's finding unique, creative ways to repurpose that content without spending a lot of time. So I will say in B2B particularly, LinkedIn is the place to be for sure. But yeah, it's posting content on your site regularly. I'd say at least once a week, if not more. Bringing buyers down the buyer's journey from your articles to your meatier pieces of content, like your white papers and your ebooks and your special reports, and then moving them into, bottom of funnel. So case studies and sales collateral. And then finally booking that demo or that sales call. All of the research that's been coming out in the last few months has been showing that buyers are not spending time with sales reps. There was something I posted on LinkedIn today, and Gartner found that 80% of sales interactions, sales decisions are going to be digital first. So creating all that content and mapping it to your buyer personas and having a strategy in place is really important, because like any of us, like any consumer, we're online, we're doing research, we're reading reviews, we're watching videos, we're understanding that solution in its entirety before we say, all right, let me take a call with someone or let me make that decision.
Yeah. And there's like another study that ties exactly to what you're talking about, which is amazing. It's like it takes 7 to 10 times for people to notice you, to see you for the first time, right?
Yeah.
So that consistency, the multi-channel, the constant communication and tying, all the campaigns together, I think it makes a lot of sense. But for example, for small teams like marketing teams and listeners right now, or even people that need to get, external help, how can you help them, or what are some tips to creating a content calendar? So can you talk to us a little bit about that? So we know we have the buyer's persona, we know we have to be targeted, we know we have to be in all channels, but okay, now we're gonna to put all of these components together.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up, because I would say that most of the people I work with don't have content calendars.
Interesting.
And and you have to put your journalist hat on, right? If you're creating content, you have to think like a journalist, you have to think like a publisher. And so, yes, having that content calendar is really key. So I would say, first off, read everything you can. So I'm talking different industries, different websites, different things on social, magazines, books, read it all, consume it all. Because some of the best ideas actually come from other industries and other channels. The other thing is think about themes. So, particularly in health or healthcare, there's health awareness calendars. So there's different awareness months, awareness days. Make sure you're building your content around that. The other big tip is sitting down with your SMEs and interviewing them. And unfortunately, a lot of these SMEs don't, C-suite leaders, they don't have time. But I found this to be really successful where you can kind of extend bandwidth with them. So if you're conducting an interview for an article, for example, tack on another 15 minutes and ask them additional questions, or book a full hour and try to get 2 to 3 pieces from that SME. And then kind of pick their brain about what else is going on in the industry. And so much can come from that one conversation. And then finally, just brainstorm with your team, take a half an hour. I know everyone's busy, but just kind of sit down, and the best ideas come from those old-fashioned brainstorming meetings where like magazines do that, and television, we used to do that. We used to sit around, all the producers would sit around and just kind of brainstorm great ideas. And then just always be thinking and looking at B2C or B2B, wherever you are in the industry, but look to other industries and see what they're doing, and see what's working well. And, I think as a writer, I'm always thinking and reading, and you have to kind of put that journalist hat on.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that correlation between having that solid content calendar, great copy,
Mhm.
and converting leads into sales. What have you seen in your experience?
Yeah, so I don't have a ton of transparency into what kind of goes on at the company, although I often ask for it. But I will say, the content marketing industry, I will say that the Content Marketing Institute has done studies about this, and they've shown that the most successful marketers are those that have that content strategy, that documented content marketing strategy in place. So, I mean, it's like anything else. If you don't have direction, you don't know where you're going. It's just throwing it and hoping it'll stick, right? So I think that, having a strategy in place, knowing who you're talking to, knowing what your goals are, that's so important because your content will be built around it, and then you will be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So I'm a former TV guy. I love video. You
Yeah.
mentioned video in there, people going on YouTube and Vimeo and other places. Why is it so important in today's landscape? And then how can someone like yourself help a company leverage that medium in a successful way?
Yeah. So like I said, every year the stats come out and show that all companies are moving towards video. And, I conducted a survey on LinkedIn on my own page. And I think I found that 71% of respondents said that they were ramping up video marketing this year.
Yeah.
And it's like we're talking about it a lot, but not everyone really is on board. But I think this is the year for video. So I would say, and the good thing is that, years ago, right, like when you, Mike and I were younger, I would sit in an Avid suite. I would have the VO guy come in. He would be in a little studio, he'd record the VO, and I would write the script, and I would sit with an editor every morning, and we would be in this big Avid suite with this, the big monitors and computers. And so the good news is so much of that has changed. So, there's a platform called Riverside, and you can record your interviews just like this on Zoom, and it's high quality. And there's so many different tools, and even basic tools like Canva, you can do video on. You don't have to be in person anymore, although there are certain videos where I would recommend that you're shooting B-roll, you're shooting good quality content, good interviews. But for example, if you do testimonial case studies, you can use something like Riverside or Zoom, and use existing content that you have. So just even sales decks or website, use that as B-roll. So there's a lot that you can do. And I would say that, you may consider working with a video marketing firm because they really can focus on strategy and understand your goals and kind of where you're going. Although, yes, you could work with a freelancer like myself who can help you write the scripts for your videos.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the roadmap, right? The script is the roadmap to creating that quality video. And then to your point, it is so much easier than it ever was before to find even file video on some of these websites where it's you can buy it without having any sort of copyright issues. There's plenty of that out there, and you can edit it on your phone if you had to, if you're on a shoestring budget.
Yeah, that is very amazing. And
Yeah.
Julie, now that we're talking about video, I'm very curious, and I think our audience is curious as well. What would be some of the best practices, like in terms of length, in terms of the format? Can you just share with us a little bit what's going on right now in terms of trends for video marketing?
Yeah, I would say in terms of length is to keep it really at 30 seconds or a minute.
Okay.
I find oftentimes I'll see videos that are too long. That's the whole point of video, right? You don't want to read, you don't want to sit. And our attention spans are just going down, down, down. So yes, I would say 30 seconds to a minute. Stick with one story, and then of course tell a story, and know your goals, know your target audience, and I think when you're interviewing, whether it's customers or SMEs at your company, think like a producer. Again, have that storyline, but also make sure that they're talking in sound bites. So oftentimes I'll see healthcare leaders on live events on LinkedIn or even videos, and they're rambling on. And I think that if you can provide some sort of media coaching for them so they understand how to talk in a concise way and in sound bites, it's really helpful. And then, use that video, leverage it in different channels, on social, on your website, repurpose it into written content, publish an article on your website and embed the video there. There's so many different ways to use it.
That's amazing. Julie, you are a wealth of information. I'm so happy you joined us. I think everybody's enjoying this conversation as much as we are. So for us to finalize, and can you just give like a little bit of like sound bites of what do you think throughout your career, what do you think that resonates the most with B2B audiences, and what would be your final tips for, our listeners?
Absolutely. So when I started out, everything was really print back then, and there wasn't much digital at that time. I'm pretty old, but I think
I doubt that.
I think that with each new iteration of media, people will say, email is dead or print is dead, but that is not the case, right? We're just evolving, and everything will stick. Just like years ago when they said newspaper was dead, newspaper isn't dead. It's still there, but it's evolving. And I think every channel will continue to be there, will continue to serve its purpose, but will change, and we'll get new social media platforms. But again, with social media, you also have to feed that machine. You have to, it's still good content. So I would say always tell a story, regardless of the channel, regardless of what your goals are. Always make sure that you're telling a story. People love stories. They don't want to know how great your product is, how great your solution is. They want to know, what's the story and how does it help me? Right? We're very egocentric. We're the selfie generation. So I would say, again, tell a story. Think like a journalist, think like a producer, think great content, and think differently than what your competitors are doing. So when you do work with writers, I would say, you're looking for a copywriter, look for a journalist, because they know how to tell stories. They know how to do research. They know how to write newsworthy, clickable headlines, all of it. And again, work with people who are not order takers, who are not just interested in the one and done. They're interested in a long-term partnership. They want to see you succeed. They want to contribute value. They want to work together with you as a team member, as an extension of your marketing team. And then, subject matter expertise is really important. And then again, when you're working, if you're thinking about working with a freelance writer, think about people that have long-term clients. So, someone who has a client for over a year. I have some clients that I've had for several years, but that's really important, because you're showing that you have longevity. You're showing that you are interested in that partnership and you want to see them succeed.
This is amazing, amazing tips, guys. Julie is awesome. And I want to ask you one last question, because I thought was really interesting. We got this question from our audience. What's the future of direct mail? I want to get your opinion on it.
Interesting. So years ago, I actually was interested in writing direct mail. It never happened. And I don't have any clients, obviously, that that asked me to do that, right? Because all of their buyers are all over the place, and direct mail is really, I would say, more of a consumer facing medium. But like I said, it's not going to go away. We still open our mail, and because there's less of it, we're more interested in it, right? When you get your mail, are you excited to see what comes in the mail, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Comes to you. Yeah, we love magazines and catalogs and postcards. My church does this a lot. They send postcards out, and it is kind of exciting, because also it's a great way to personalize that message, because your name is on it, and it's really geared towards you. Yeah, so.
But
It's
I
a way
will
to
say
cut
I'm
through the
excited to
noise,
get my
right?
mail until I open it and see a bunch of junk.
Right. Yes.
So then
yes.
most of it ends up in the trash anyway.
Right. But if you're getting 1 million emails a day, right, it also cuts through the noise. And I think it gets back to that multi-channel marketing effort, right? It's maybe you are getting an email, but you're also getting a postcard to follow up.
Very true. And a gift. I used to work for a big healthcare company, and we would do a lot of direct mails. And we were surprised of like the amount of people opening and you know, coming through our landing page, you know, using the QR code that was
Okay,
on
yeah.
there. So it was just very surprising, a channel like that still working. So thank you for your feedback. I think, you know, channels, they work best for certain companies, right? So it's all like a mix and match. There is no like one Bible that you have to follow. You have to think about what works for your company. So thank you so
Exactly.
much, Julie. You're
Yeah.
awesome. And I
Yeah,
loved
Julie
all of your
Revelant,
tips.
revelantwriting.com. If you are interested in reaching out to her, you can
Yes.
find her on LinkedIn as well. So thanks for making time for us.
Thank you so
Thank
much. It
you.
was so much fun chatting with you.
And thank
Yes,
you for
same.
listening to another edition of Two Friends Talking Trends. I'm Mike Pachenik.
And I'm Pauline Barron, guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.